praise. The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit thou womb chooses. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death.
Finding calm in the storm. My beloved child, I see you there, struggling with the weight of your burdens. I feel your heart racing as you try to keep up with the demands of this chaotic world. The bills piling up on your table like autumn leaves. The relationships that need mending, frayed like old fabric. The health concerns that keep you awake at night, whispering fear into your darkness. The uncertainty about tomorrow that makes your stomach tighten with worry, a knot that seems impossible to untie. I see it all, and I am here with you now, as I have always been, waiting for the moment when you would finally hear my voice through the noise. Do you remember when I was in the boat with my disciples? A furious storm came upon us, waves like mountains crashing over the sides, water filling the boat like the tears that sometimes fill your eyes. My dear friends were frantic, certain they would drown in the merciless sea. And where was I? Sleeping peacefully at the stern, my head resting on a cushion, my heart anchored in a truth they had yet to understand. They woke me panicked. "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" And with 3 simple words, "Peace, be still," I calmed both the storm around them and the storm within them. The sea became glass. The skies cleared. And in that moment, they glimpsed a power that transcended nature itself. I want you to know that this message today is not by chance or coincidence. There are no coincidences in the universe, only appointments made before time began. You have been led here because I have something special to share with you. This is your divine appointment, a sacred moment between us written in the stars before you took your first breath. In the midst of your personal storms, I am reaching out to you, offering the same peace I gave my disciples that day on the tumultuous Galilee. Your seeking has led you here, and my love has been waiting. What if I told you that the greatest power you possess is not the ability to control external circumstances, but to maintain inner calm regardless of what happens outside? This calm is not weakness or surrender. It is spiritual strength in its purest form, the kind that moves mountains and parts seas, the kind that faced Pilate with silent dignity and forgave from the cross amid excruciating pain. This power already dwells within you, waiting to be awakened. The world seeks peace in possessions, in achievements, in the approval of others, but these are like building a house on sand. Today, I will show you how my example of calmness throughout the most challenging situations of my earthly journey can become your pathway to peace. Not a shallow peace that depends on perfect circumstances, but a deep, abiding serenity that flows from knowing who you are and whose you are, a child of the Most High, infinitely loved, eternally held. Take a moment right now and breathe deeply. Feel my presence with you, as tangible as the air filling your lungs. This message is meant for you, precisely at this moment in your life when you need it most. There is no coincidence in our meeting today, only divine synchronicity. You have been searching, sometimes without even knowing what you were looking for, and I have been waiting to share this truth with you, patient as the mountains that watch over the changing seasons. Have you noticed how the world constantly pulls you in different directions? How demands, expectations, and worries compete for your attention like merchants in a marketplace, each calling louder than the last. In your pursuit of keeping everything together, of being everything to everyone, you may have lost something precious. The quiet center where true strength resides, the eye of the hurricane where perfect stillness exists even as the storm rages. I understand what it means to face overwhelming pressure. During my time on Earth, I walked through valleys of shadow and climbed mountains of challenge. I encountered hatred from those I came to save, betrayal from those closest to me, misunderstanding from those who heard but did not listen, and ultimately the cross itself, the ultimate symbol of suffering transformed into the ultimate symbol of love. Yet through it all, witnesses spoke of my remarkable composure, a serenity that confounded both friends and foes. This wasn't because my circumstances were easy, but because my peace came from a source deeper than circumstances, a well that never runs dry. The calmness I displayed wasn't just a personality trait, it was a spiritual practice and a deliberate choice made moment by moment. It was the fruit of my intimate connection with the Father, a connection as vital as breathing. And today, I want to show you how this same connection can anchor you amidst the storms of your life, how it can become your sanctuary when the world offers no shelter. When you look at the challenges you're facing right now, do they seem insurmountable like giants on your horizon? Do you feel like you're drowning in responsibilities, in pain, in uncertainty, gasping for air as the waters rise? I want you to know that just as I stood firm in the face of my trials, you too can develop this spiritual strength, this divine calmness that transcends understanding. It is your birthright, written into your soul when you were formed in secret. The calmness I offer is like the depth of the ocean. While the surface may be churned by storms, in the depths there is a stillness that remains undisturbed. This is the place I invite you to dwell, below the chaos, in the sanctuary of divine presence. Here, in this sacred space where heaven touches earth, you will find the strength that has carried saints and martyrs through their darkest hours, the peace that defies logical explanation. Consider the mountains, how they stand unmoved through centuries of changing weather. They do not fight against the rain or snow or wind. They simply remain, steadfast in their being. This is the quality of spiritual calmness I wish to cultivate in you. Not a passive resignation, but an active presence, fully aware, fully engaged, yet internally unmoved by the temporary storms of circumstance. Remember that throughout history, it is not the loudest voices that have ultimately prevailed, but the most centered ones. It is not those who fought hardest against the current, but those who learned to navigate it with wisdom and grace. My calmness was not a weakness before my accusers. It was my greatest strength, confounding those who expected me to defend myself with the same weapons they wielded. Instead, I stood in a power they could not understand, the power of perfect peace. The mystery I share with you now is this. True strength is found in surrender, not to the world and its demands, but to the divine current that flows through all things. When you align yourself with this current, you tap into a power greater than any obstacle you face. This is the secret I lived and died to show you, that the kingdom of heaven is both your destination and your present reality, available to you in this very moment if you have eyes to see and ears to hear. Take action now. This message is too important to keep to yourself. If these words have touched your heart, if they have awakened something within you that has been sleeping, you must share this video immediately with someone who is drowning in their own storm. Your simple act of sharing could be the lifeline they've been praying for. Do it now before you continue watching. Pause this video and send it to at least 3 people who need this divine message. Declare your commitment. Press the like button right now as a sacred covenant between us, your pledge to pursue this divine calmness in your daily life. Every time you face a storm this week, remember this moment and the choice you made to seek a higher path. Your like is your vow to practice peace in the face of chaos. Join our spiritual family. Subscribe to this channel immediately to ensure you never miss another divine appointment like this one. The wisdom I have to share with you goes far beyond this single message. There is an entire journey awaiting you, revelations that will transform your understanding of yourself and your purpose. Subscribe now to secure your place in this community of seekers. Speak your truth. In the comments below, boldly write peace, be still, in all capitals as your declaration to the universe that you are ready to receive the gift of divine serenity. Then share the storm you're currently facing. Be specific and vulnerable. Watch as our community surrounds you with prayer and support. Your comment is powerful. It breaks the chains of isolation and invites divine intervention. Now let us explore together how my calmness in the face of chaos can transform your life, bringing you the peace that surpasses all understanding. The very peace I promised to leave with you. A peace the world cannot give and cannot take away. A peace that will guard your heart and mind through all the seasons of your journey. My child, I understand the storms you face today look different from those my disciples encountered on the Sea of Galilee, yet they feel just as threatening. In your modern world, chaos wears many disguises. The constant notifications demanding your attention like insistent waves against the hull of your consciousness. Relationships fracturing under pressure like wood splintering in a gale. Financial insecurity looming like dark clouds on the horizon. Health concerns that whisper fear into your heart with the persistence of howling winds. And a world that seems increasingly divided and uncertain. A sea where the familiar landmarks have disappeared. This chaos is not just around you. It has found its way inside you. I see how your mind races with countless thoughts the moment you wake up, before your feet even touch the floor. How your shoulders tense as you scroll through news that predicts more trouble ahead. How your breath becomes shallow as you imagine worst-case scenarios playing out like prophecies. How you lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, your mind a battlefield of worries and regrets. The external storm has become an internal tempest. For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. These words from my servant Paul reveal a profound truth. The chaos you experience is not my design for you. I created you to dwell in serene gardens, not violent seas. Yet here you are, battling waves that threaten to overwhelm you, feeling more like Peter sinking beneath the water than walking confidently upon it. The problem is not merely the presence of storms. Storms will always come. The problem is that you have been taught to fight chaos with more chaos, to meet aggression with aggression, to answer noise with noise. Society rewards the busy, the frantic, the perpetually available. It celebrates those who can juggle 1,000 tasks while ignoring the cost to their souls. You have learned to wear your exhaustion as a badge of honor, your stress as evidence of your importance. But I never asked this of you. I never required this sacrifice. When I walked the dusty roads of Judea, I faced constant demands. Crowds pressed in from every side, each person convinced their need was most urgent. Religious leaders set traps with their questions. Political tensions simmered dangerously. Even my closest companions misunderstood my mission. Yet witnesses noted something remarkable, my unwavering composure. When they tried to make me king by force, I withdrew to a mountain alone. When they brought the adulterous woman before me, demanding judgment, I calmly wrote in the sand. When Pilate threatened me with crucifixion, I stood in silence, sovereign even in chains. What you struggle with today is not new to human experience, though it wears contemporary clothes. The anxiety that grips your heart when uncertainty looms, the irritation that flares when plans collapse, the fear that paralyzes when threats appear. These are the same emotions my followers felt when storms arose, when food ran short, when enemies closed in. The human condition remains unchanged. You were made for peace, but live in a broken world. Consider how often you have sacrificed your calm on the altar of urgency. How many times have you abandoned the present moment to worry about a future that may never arrive? How frequently have you allowed someone else's emergency to become your crisis? The toll of this constant alertness is evident in your body, your relationships, your spirit. You were never designed to function in perpetual fight or flight. The world offers counterfeit solutions to this problem. Escapes that numb rather than heal, distractions that postpone rather than resolve, philosophies that deny reality rather than transform it. Perhaps you have tried some of these remedies, the momentary relief of entertainment, the false control of excessive planning, the illusory safety of avoidance. These may provide temporary respite, but they cannot reach the root of your unrest. What you seek is not merely the absence of trouble, but the presence of something greater. Not just calm waters, but the ability to walk on stormy seas. Not just peaceful circumstances, but peaceful hearts regardless of circumstances. This is what I demonstrated throughout my earthly ministry, a serenity that confounded observers, a composure that remained unshaken even as the world shook around me. Your struggle with chaos is, at its core, a spiritual dilemma. It reveals a fundamental question. Where does your trust truly lie? In your own ability to control outcomes? In the stability of systems and institutions? In the approval of others? Or in the unchanging nature of the one who holds all things together? The answer to this question determines whether you will be tossed about by every wind or stand firm on solid ground. I see how exhausted you have become trying to calm your own storms. How you have bailed water frantically while the waves continue to crash over the sides. How you have shouted into the wind as if it might listen to your commands. All the while, I have been present, waiting for you to remember who travels with you in the boat. Waiting for you to turn to me with the simple prayer that begins all healing. Lord, save me, I'm drowning. The chaos you experience is not merely an inconvenience to be managed. It is a call to transformation. An invitation to discover a different way of being in the world. A summons to the deep, abiding peace that I promised. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. This is not a peace that depends on perfect circumstances, but transcends all circumstances. The very peace I demonstrated when I slept through the storm. Beloved, the solution to the chaos that surrounds you is not found in controlling external circumstances, but in cultivating internal sovereignty. When I walked among you, I revealed a way of being that transcended the tumultuous conditions of the world. This way of being, this divine calmness, was not accidental but intentional, not circumstantial but cultivated, not fleeting but foundational. The principles I lived by are not secrets meant to be hidden, but treasures waiting to be discovered. They are pathways to the peace that seems so elusive in your fast-paced world. Today, I reveal these sacred truths to you, not as distant ideals, but as practical wisdom for your daily journey. The first principle is this: recognize who travels with you in the boat. When my disciples panicked during the storm, their fundamental error was forgetting who was with them. They saw the waves, felt the wind, noticed the water filling the boat, but somehow overlooked that the creator of waters and winds lay sleeping nearby. Their fears stemmed not from the actual danger, but from their perception that they faced it alone. How often do you make the same mistake? You survey your challenges, the impossible deadlines, the difficult relationships, the financial pressures, the health concerns, and conclude that you must face them in your own strength. But I whisper to you now what I have always whispered. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. The one who commands the elements resides within you. You are never alone in your boat, no matter how fierce the storm. The second principle follows naturally. Anchor yourself in the present moment. Notice how I lived during my time on earth. Though I knew the cross awaited me, I did not spend my days in anxious anticipation. I fully engaged with each person I encountered. I noticed children when others dismissed them. I saw the widows offering that others overlooked. I felt the touch of the hemorrhaging woman in a pressing crowd. My calm flowed from my complete presence in each moment. Your world pulls you constantly toward past regrets or future fears. Your devices interrupt your thoughts with urgent but unimportant matters. Your culture values speed over depth, quantity over quality, achievement over presence. But wisdom dwells in the now. When you anchor yourself in the present moment, fully experiencing your breath, the sensations in your body, the beauty around you, the presence of those you love, you discover the calm that has been waiting for you all along. The third principle reveals a profound paradox. Surrender is the path to true power. When I stood before Pilate, silent as he flaunted his authority to crucify or release me, I demonstrated this truth. Do you not know that I have power over you? He demanded. Yet in my apparent powerlessness, my surrender to the Father's will lay a strength that would ultimately overturn empires. Your instinct when facing chaos is to grasp for control, to tighten your grip, to force outcomes through sheer will. But true calm comes when you open your hands and surrender, not in passive resignation but in active trust. Not my will but yours be done is not a prayer of defeat, but the most empowering declaration possible. It aligns you with the current of divine purpose, rather than exhausting yourself swimming against it. The fourth principle transforms how you view challenges. Storms are opportunities for growth, not just obstacles to overcome. When I allowed myself to be led into the wilderness to be tempted, when I engaged with hostile religious leaders, when I permitted the crucifixion itself, I demonstrated that trials are not interruptions of the spiritual journey, but essential aspects of it. Each storm you face invites you to develop virtues that cannot be formed in calm waters, courage that cannot be built in safety, patience that cannot be cultivated in immediate gratification, faith that cannot be strengthened without testing. When you reframe your challenges as the very soil in which your spiritual strength takes root, your relationship with difficulty fundamentally changes. You begin to ask not why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me? The fifth principle illuminates the source of unshakable peace. Know whose you are. Throughout my ministry, I maintained perfect clarity about my identity and purpose. I and the Father are one, I declared. This unshakable knowledge of my relationship with the divine anchored me through every storm, every confrontation, every misunderstanding, and ultimately, even through death itself. Your calm is directly proportional to your clarity about your true identity. When you know yourself as a beloved child of God, fearfully and wonderfully made, eternally valued, purposefully designed, external validations and criticisms lose their power over you. The opinions of others, the shifting standards of society, the temporary failures and successes all fall into proper perspective when viewed through the lens of your divine identity. The sixth principle reveals the secret of spiritual resilience, regular communion with the Source. Notice how often the Gospels record me withdrawing to pray, sometimes spending entire nights in communion with the Father. Before major decisions, after intense ministry, during periods of grief, I prioritized these intimate connections above all else. My public calm flowed from my private communion. In your busy life, with demands coming from every direction, you may see solitude and silence as luxuries you cannot afford. But they are necessities you cannot survive without. The time you spend in prayer, meditation, scripture, and silent communion with me is not time taken away from productivity. It is the wellspring of true productivity. It is not an escape from reality, but a deeper engagement with it. It is in these sacred moments that your spirit is refreshed, your perspective restored, and your calm renewed. The seventh principle may surprise you. Compassion creates calm. When I encountered the suffering of others, I did not become overwhelmed or distressed. Instead, I moved with composed compassion, healing the sick, comforting the grieving, welcoming the outcast. My serenity was not diminished by engagement with pain, but actually deepened through it. Your culture often suggests that peace comes through isolation from others' suffering, through building walls rather than bridges. But this leads to a fragile tranquility that cannot withstand reality. True calm emerges when you open your heart to the pain of others without being consumed by it, when you extend compassion without taking on the full weight of the world. As you reach out in love, you discover the paradoxical truth that giving brings more peace than guarding, that connection brings more calm than isolation. The final principle weaves all others together, live from a place of trust rather than fear. Do not let your hearts be troubled, I told my disciples. This was not a suggestion but a command, a reminder that anxiety is not just an uncomfortable feeling, but a choice to forget what you know about God's character. Throughout my life, I demonstrated trust in the Father's goodness, wisdom, and power, even as I approached the cross. Fear and trust cannot coexist. Each moment presents you with a choice. Will you live from the constricted, reactive place of fear, or from the expansive, responsive place of trust? Will you see threats on every horizon, or opportunities for grace? Will you perceive others as dangers to be defended against, or souls to be loved? The calm you seek flows naturally when you choose, again and again, to trust in the larger story being written, a story where love ultimately triumphs over fear, light over darkness, life over death. Beloved, these principles formed the foundation of my serenity in the face of chaos. They were not theoretical concepts but lived realities. And now, I offer them to you, not as burdens to bear, but as keys to unlock the peace that already dwells within you. The calmness you have glimpsed in me is also your inheritance, waiting to be claimed. Share this revelation. These divine principles of calm are desperately needed in a world drowning in anxiety. Someone in your circle is struggling right now, feeling overwhelmed and alone. Be their lifeline. Share this video immediately and be the instrument of divine peace in their life. Declare your awakening. Press the like button right now as your solemn vow that you will begin implementing these sacred principles today. Each like represents a soul choosing the path of divine serenity over worldly chaos. Join this spiritual journey. Subscribe to our channel to receive more of these divine revelations that the world cannot give you. The wisdom I share here goes beyond human understanding. It is the very essence of heavenly peace distilled for your transformation. In the next segment, I will show you how to apply these principles in the specific storms you face. For now, hold these truths in your heart. Meditate on them. Let them begin to take root in the soil of your spirit. The journey to divine calm has already begun. My beloved, knowing the principles of divine calmness is only the beginning. Wisdom becomes transformative when it moves from the realm of understanding to the realm of action. Just as I did not merely teach about love but demonstrated it with my life, so must you not only comprehend these principles but embody them in your daily existence. Let me guide you now on how to apply this sacred wisdom to the storms you currently face. Begin each day by acknowledging my presence. Before your feet touch the floor, before you reach for your device, before the demands of the day crowd your consciousness, turn your heart toward me. Whisper my name. Recall that I am already with you in the boat. This simple practice establishes the foundation for all that follows. Many of my most dedicated followers find that rising before dawn, creating a sanctuary of silence in the early hours, provides the sacred space needed for this communion. Lord, I remember that you are with me today. Whatever waters I must navigate, you are in my boat. Whatever winds may arise, you command them. I am not alone in this journey. This acknowledgement is not a magical formula, but a realignment of your perspective, a deliberate shifting of your attention from the waves to the wavemaker. Notice how different your day feels when it begins with this eternal truth rather than with immediate concerns. The circumstances may remain unchanged, but your relationship to them transforms fundamentally. Next, practice mindful presence throughout your day. Set gentle reminders, perhaps when you wash your hands, when you enter a new room, when you begin a new task, to return to the present moment. Feel your breath. Notice the sensations in your body. Observe the details around you. Hear the sounds. This practice of presence pulls you back from the regrets of the past and the anxieties of the future into the only moment where peace can be experienced. Now, when I fed the 5,000, healed the blind man, or taught on the hillside, I was fully present to that moment. I did not rush through one miracle to get to the next or teach with divided attention. Learn from my example. Your culture celebrates multitasking, but divided attention produces divided hearts. Give yourself completely to each person, each task, each moment. This is the path to integrated peace. When you feel the storm rising, when anger flares, anxiety tightens, or fear whispers, practice intentional surrender. Open your hands physically as a symbol of releasing control. Breathe deeply. Offer the simple prayer I taught in Gethsemane. Not my will, but yours be done. This is not passive resignation, but active alignment with divine wisdom that transcends your limited perspective. A woman in my community practiced this when her husband received a devastating diagnosis. As panic threatened to overwhelm her, she opened her hands and whispered, "Lord, I surrender this situation to you. I don't know the path forward, but I trust your guidance." The peace that came didn't eliminate the challenge, but enabled her to face it with clarity and strength rather than chaos and weakness. When facing a particular challenge, ask yourself, what virtue is this storm inviting me to develop? Is it patience with a difficult colleague? Courage to speak truth in a complex situation? Compassion towards someone who has hurt you? Faith when outcomes seem uncertain? By reframing the challenge as an opportunity for spiritual growth, you transform your relationship with difficulty. A young man in our fellowship was laid off unexpectedly. Rather than seeing only crisis, he asked, "What might this storm be teaching me?" He discovered an invitation to develop trust, to reassess his priorities, and to explore calling rather than just career. The unemployment period became not just an obstacle to overcome, but a crucible for transformation. The calm he maintained through this process astonished those around him and opened doors that pressure and panic would have kept shut. Throughout your day, create small sanctuaries of solitude. Even 5 minutes of silence, stepping outside, closing your office door, sitting in your car before entering home, can restore your spiritual equilibrium. Use these moments not to solve problems, but simply to be with me, to breathe, to remember who you are and whose you are. In the midst of this busy day, Lord, I pause to remember that I am your beloved child. The demands around me do not define me. The challenges before me do not diminish me. I am held in your eternal love. When interacting with others, practice compassionate detachment, caring deeply without taking on the full weight of their emotions. When Mary and Martha grieved for Lazarus, I wept with them, but remained centered in the larger truth and purpose. I didn't distance myself from their pain. but neither did I become consumed by it. This balanced engagement allows you to be present to suffering without drowning in it. A teacher in our community works with traumatized children. She practices this compassionate detachment by visualizing herself surrounded by my light as she listens to their stories, caring profoundly while remaining anchored in a peace that allows her to help rather than merely sympathize. At the end of each day, she symbolically places each child in my hands, acknowledging the limits of her responsibility while trusting in the limitlessness of my love. Throughout your day, practice choosing trust over fear. When worrying thoughts arise, what if I fail? What if I'm rejected? What if I don't have enough? Counter each with a truth about my character. My God is faithful. My God is with me. My God provides. This is not positive thinking but reality alignment, adjusting your thoughts to what is most true rather than what feels most threatening. A father in our fellowship practiced this when his daughter faced a serious illness. Each time fear whispered catastrophic possibilities, he countered with truths about my love, my power, and my presence. This discipline of thought didn't guarantee a particular outcome, but preserved his peace through the process, enabling him to be a steady presence for his family rather than adding his anxiety to theirs. Incorporate symbolic reminders of calm into your environment. Some of my followers wear a small anchor pendant to recall that their souls are anchored in eternal truth. Others keep a smooth stone on their desk, remembering that I am their rock in turbulent times. Some place a feather in their car, recalling my promise that those who hope in me will soar on wings like eagles. These physical symbols serve as touchpoints throughout the day, gently guiding your attention back to the source of true peace. Practice gratitude as a pathway to perspective. Each evening, identify at least 3 moments from your day for which you are thankful. This simple discipline shifts your focus from what threatened your peace to what sustained it. Gratitude is not denial of difficulty, but recognition of the larger context in which difficulty exists, a context of ongoing grace. A woman battling chronic pain in our community keeps a gratitude journal by her bedside. Even on her most challenging days, she finds 3 mercies to record: the friend who called, the sunlight through her window, the moment of relief between waves of discomfort. This practice has transformed her experience, not by changing her circumstances, but by changing her relationship to them. Finally, end each day with an act of release. Before sleep, symbolically place your unfinished tasks, unresolved concerns, and upcoming challenges into my hands. Acknowledge that while you sleep, I remain awake, working in ways you cannot see to weave all things together for good. This surrender allows for true rest, not just of the body but of the spirit. Lord, I release to you what remains undone, what seems impossible, what causes me concern. Tonight I rest in your care, trusting that your work continues even when mine ceases. Tomorrow I will pick up again what you entrust to me, but tonight, it all belongs to you. These practical applications transform the principles of divine calmness from abstract ideals into lived realities. They create pathways through which my peace can flow into your daily experience. They are not formulas guaranteeing freedom from storms, but anchors ensuring stability within them. As you practice these applications consistently, the gap between my calmness and your experience gradually closes. You become not just an admirer of divine serenity, but a vessel through which it flows into the world. Transform your life today. These are not mere suggestions, but divine strategies for living above the chaos. If you're serious about experiencing supernatural peace, commit right now by sharing this video with at least 5 people who need this message. Your obedience to this prompting could literally save someone from drowning in their storm. Seal your commitment. Hit the like button immediately as your covenant before heaven that you will begin applying these principles starting today. This simple action is your first step toward the divine calmness that transforms not just your life, but everyone around you. Secure your spiritual growth. Subscribe to this channel now to continue receiving these life-changing revelations. The enemy of your soul wants to keep you from this wisdom. Defeat his plans by joining our community of transformation. In our next segment, I will share powerful testimonies of those who have applied these principles and experienced remarkable transformation. Their stories will ignite your faith and expand your vision of what's possible when divine calmness becomes your way of life. Beloved, throughout the ages, countless souls have discovered the transformative power of divine calmness. Their stories are not mere anecdotes, but living testaments to the eternal truth that my peace transcends all understanding and circumstances. Let me share with you the journeys of those who have walked through fierce storms, yet found an inexplicable serenity, a peace that could only come from above. Their testimonies will illuminate the path before you and kindle hope in places where despair has cast its shadow. Consider Maria, a woman whose life collapsed like a house built on sand. Within a single year, she lost her husband to cancer, her job to corporate downsizing, and her home to financial hardship. The waves crashed mercilessly against her life, threatening to sweep away her faith along with everything else. In her darkest moment, she recalled the story of my sleeping through the storm. If Jesus could rest in the midst of a tempest, she reasoned, perhaps I can find that same peace. Maria began implementing the principles of divine calmness. Each morning, she acknowledged my presence before facing the day. She created small sanctuaries of silence amidst her chaos. She practiced intentional surrender when anxiety threatened to overwhelm her. Gradually, something remarkable emerged, not a change in her circumstances, but a transformation in her relationship to them. A peace that defied logical explanation settled over her spirit. I still had moments of profound grief, Maria shares. I still faced practical challenges that seemed insurmountable. But beneath it all was a steady current of calm that carried me forward. People would ask, how are you not falling apart? And all I could say was, it's not my strength, it's His peace flowing through my surrender. Today, Maria has rebuilt her life, not by frantic striving, but by peaceful trusting. She found new work that aligns more deeply with her purpose. She developed a community of support where her vulnerability became a source of strength for others. She discovered that what the enemy intended for destruction, I transformed into a testimony of divine resilience. The storm didn't end, she testifies, but I found out who travels with me in the boat, and that has made all the difference. Then there is David, a business executive whose life was consumed by the relentless pursuit of success. His calendar overflowed with commitments. His mind raced with strategic plans. His body showed the telltale signs of chronic stress, insomnia, high blood pressure, irritability. I was living from crisis to crisis, he admits, constantly putting out fires while new ones ignited all around me. The turning point came during a significant presentation when his mind simply went blank. Standing before important clients and colleagues, David experienced a panic attack that left him gasping for air. In that moment of profound humiliation, he heard my gentle whisper, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." David began integrating the practices of divine calmness into his high-pressure life. He established firm boundaries around his time, creating space for silence and reflection each day. He practiced mindful presence in meetings, giving his full attention to the person speaking rather than mentally rehearsing his response. He implemented regular Sabbath rest, setting aside one day each week as sacred time for renewal. The most counterintuitive discovery, David shares, was that slowing down actually made me more effective. When I operated from a place of calm rather than chaos, my decisions improved. My creativity flourished. My relationships deepened. I accomplished more by doing less because what I did was focused and intentional rather than reactive and scattered. David's colleagues noticed the transformation. "You're different," they would say. "Something has changed." Some were curious enough to ask his secret, opening doors for him to share about the source of his newfound peace. "I haven't left the business world," David explains, "but I navigate it differently now. I've learned to be in the storm without letting the storm be in me." Consider also the story of Elena, a young mother whose child was born with a rare genetic condition requiring constant medical attention. The diagnosis shattered the idyllic future she had imagined and plunged her into a sea of fear, grief, and exhaustion. "Every day felt like walking through a minefield," Elena recalls. "I never knew what medical crisis might erupt, what developmental milestone might be missed, what new limitation we might encounter." In her desperation, Elena reached out to a support group for parents of children with special needs. There she met Sarah, a mother 15 years further along on a similar journey. What struck Elena immediately was Sarah's remarkable sense of peace. Despite facing circumstances even more challenging than Elena's, Sarah exuded a serene strength that seemed almost otherworldly. "How do you do it?" Elena asked. "How do you not collapse under the weight of it all?" Sarah shared with Elena the principles of divine calmness she had discovered through her own valley of shadows. She taught Elena to practice compassionate detachment, loving her child fiercely while surrendering outcomes to my care. She showed Elena how to find gratitude even on the hardest days. She demonstrated how to create moments of sacred rest amidst unrelenting demands. As Elena began implementing these practices, a gradual transformation occurred. The situation didn't become easier, she acknowledges, but I became stronger, not with my own strength but with a peace that flowed from a deeper source. I learned to see my child not as a problem to be solved but as a person to be loved, not as a series of medical conditions but as a unique soul with a purpose. Today, Elena supports other parents beginning this journey, passing along the wisdom she received. What looks like the end of your dreams, she tells them, can become the beginning of a deeper capacity for love than you ever imagined possible. The key is not to fight against reality, but to find the peace that enables you to engage with it from a place of centered strength rather than fragmented fear. Then there is Marcus, a man who carried the heavy burden of unforgiveness like chains around his spirit. Betrayed by his closest friend and business partner, Marcus lost not only his livelihood, but also his sense of trust in humanity. Bitterness took root in his heart, gradually poisoning his relationships, his health, and his joy. I was consumed by thoughts of revenge, Marcus confesses. The anger was eating me alive, yet I clung to it as if it gave me power. During a sleepless night, Marcus found himself reading my words from the cross. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. The realization struck him with the force of revelation. Even in my moment of greatest suffering, I had chosen forgiveness over resentment, peace over bitterness. If Jesus could forgive those who nailed him to the cross, Marcus reasoned, perhaps I too could find the strength to release this burden. Marcus began practicing intentional forgiveness as a pathway to peace. Each day, he would visualize placing the offense and the offender in my hands, acknowledging that vengeance belongs to God alone. When memories of the betrayal surfaced, he would counter them with prayers for his former friend's well-being. When the urge to slander arose, he would speak words of blessing instead. It wasn't a single moment of transformation, Marcus shares, but a daily choice to align myself with divine peace rather than human resentment. Gradually, the chains loosened. The weight lifted. I discovered that forgiveness wasn't about excusing the offense, but about freeing myself from its ongoing power to disturb my peace. Today, Marcus has established a new business more aligned with his deepest values. More importantly, he has reclaimed the ability to trust and to form authentic connections. The betrayal is part of my story, he acknowledges, but it no longer defines my story. I've learned that true power lies not in holding on to offenses but in releasing them, not in building walls of protection but in maintaining boundaries with an open heart. Finally, consider the testimony of Sophia, an elderly woman who has weathered 92 years of life's storms. Having lived through war, economic depression, personal loss, and physical decline, Sophia radiates a serenity that draws people to her presence. Young parents bring their children to her home. Troubled teenagers seek her counsel. Adults in midlife crisis find perspective in her wisdom. What is your secret? They ask. Her answer is always the same. I have learned to dance in the rain. For Sophia, divine calmness is not a technique but a way of being, cultivated through decades of daily surrender. Each morning, I wake up and say, Lord, this day is yours. Whatever comes, we will face it together. Each night, I release what remains undone, trusting that his mercies will be new with the dawn. Sophia's life demonstrates the cumulative power of consistent spiritual practice. The peace doesn't come all at once, she explains. It's like the gradual shaping of a riverbed by water flowing over stones. Each act of trust, each moment of surrender, each choice to focus on eternal truth rather than temporary trouble. These gradually carve channels through which divine serenity can flow more freely. These testimonies, my beloved, are not exceptional cases but examples of what is available to all who embrace the principles of divine calmness. They represent not the elimination of storms, but the discovery of an unshakable anchor within them. Their lives demonstrate the truth of my promise. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world. Your testimony is waiting to be written. The same transformation these people experienced is available to you right now. Their stories could be your story. Share this video immediately with everyone in your circle who needs to hear that peace is possible even in life's fiercest storms. Declare your readiness. Press the like button right now as your sacred vow that you are ready to become the next powerful testimony of divine calmness transforming chaos into peace. Each like represents another soul choosing the path of supernatural serenity. Join the movement of transformation. Subscribe to our channel without delay to become part of this growing community of believers who are demonstrating that divine peace is not just a theological concept, but a lived reality. Your subscription is your commitment to a different way of being in this chaotic world. In our next segment, I will provide specific, practical steps for your transformation journey. These testimonies have shown you what's possible. Now I will show you the path to making it your reality. My beloved child, now that you understand the principles of divine calmness and have witnessed their transformative power in the lives of others, it is time to begin your own journey toward unshakable peace. The path before you is not complicated, though it requires commitment. I will guide you through specific, practical steps that will gradually reshape your relationship with chaos and cultivate the sacred serenity that defined my earthly ministry. The transformation begins with the renewal of your mind. Your thoughts create the atmosphere of your inner world, determining whether you experience storms or stillness within. Let us start with practical exercises to redirect your mental patterns from chaos to calm. First, create a sacred morning routine that anchors your day in peace rather than urgency. Rise 15 minutes earlier than necessary. This small sacrifice yields immense spiritual dividends. In these quiet moments before demands begin, sit in a designated space with your Bible, journal, and a candle that symbolizes my light illuminating your path. Begin with 3 deep breaths, releasing tension with each exhale. Then speak this truth aloud. This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Whatever storms may come, Jesus is in my boat. This simple declaration establishes the fundamental reality around which your day will revolve. Next, read a passage from the Gospels that illustrates my calmness, perhaps my sleep during the storm, Mark 4 verses 35 to 41, my silence before accusers, Matthew 27 verses 12 to 14, or my composed compassion with the woman caught in adultery, John 8 verses 1 to 11. Don't analyze the text intellectually, but absorb it experientially. Imagine yourself present in the scene, observing my demeanor, hearing my voice, feeling the atmosphere created by my presence. Then, write in your journal using this prompt. Today, I release my anxiety about. Identify specific concerns weighing on your spirit and visualize placing each one in my capable hands. Follow this with, today I will practice calm by. Name one concrete action that will cultivate serenity amid your particular challenges. Close your sacred time with this prayer. Lord Jesus, breathe your peace into my spirit. Help me today to remain anchored in your presence regardless of circumstances. Make me a vessel of your divine calmness in every interaction. Amen. This entire routine requires just 15 minutes, yet it creates a foundation of peace that can sustain you through the most turbulent day. Those who have implemented this practice consistently report a remarkable difference in their resilience when facing unexpected challenges. The sacred morning routine doesn't prevent storms, but prepares the heart to weather them with grace. Next, create physical reminders of calm that will interrupt patterns of anxiety throughout your day. Select a small object that symbolizes peace for you, perhaps a smooth stone, a cross, a shell, or a feather. Carry this in your pocket or place it where you'll encounter it regularly. Each time you see or touch this object, pause for 3 conscious breaths, remembering my presence with you in that moment. A businessman in our community keeps such a stone in his pocket during high-stress meetings. When tension rises, he discreetly touches it, reconnecting with the deeper reality beyond the immediate pressure. That simple physical reminder, he shares, has prevented countless reactive responses I would later regret. It creates a tiny space between stimulus and response, enough room for divine wisdom to enter. For your digital devices, often sources of fragmentation and urgency, establish boundaries that protect your peace. Designate specific times to check email and messages rather than responding to each notification immediately. Create technology-free zones in your home where devices are not permitted. Set your phone to do not disturb during meals, conversations, prayer times, and for the first and last hour of each day. A mother in our fellowship implemented these digital boundaries with transformative results. When I stopped living at the mercy of notifications, I discovered space to breathe, to really see my children, to hear the subtle whispers of the Spirit that were previously drowned out by constant noise. My anxiety decreased dramatically once I stopped the perpetual interruption of my attention. Now let us address the words you speak, for they both reflect and shape your inner state. Begin practicing what the Desert Fathers called custody of the tongue, the disciplined awareness of how your speech either cultivates or corrodes peace, both within yourself and among others. Identify phrases that invite chaos into your spirit. I'm so stressed. I can't handle this. Everything is falling apart. I'll never get through this. These declarations, though seemingly innocent, actually reinforce a perception of overwhelm and powerlessness. Replace them with truths that align with a reality bigger than your temporary circumstances. I'm facing challenges, but peace is still available. This is difficult, but I'm not alone in it. With God's help, I can navigate this season. This storm too shall pass. A teacher in our community placed a bracelet on her right wrist each morning. Whenever she caught herself speaking words that cultivated anxiety rather than peace, she would transfer the bracelet to her left wrist. This simple awareness practice gradually transformed her speech patterns and, consequently, her experience of daily pressures. For those moments when anxiety threatens to overwhelm you despite your best intentions, develop an emergency spiritual protocol, a series of steps to restore your equilibrium in the midst of acute stress. First, remove yourself temporarily from the triggering situation if possible. Step outside, excuse yourself to the restroom, or simply pause the conversation. This creates space for wisdom to replace reactivity. Next, place your hand over your heart and take 5 deep breaths, focusing on the sensation of your chest rising and falling. This physiological intervention interrupts the stress response in your nervous system. Then, silently recite this adapted version of the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, fill me with your peace. Repeat this with each breath until you feel your center returning. If possible, text or call a spiritual companion who understands your journey and can speak truth over you in moments of distress. Finally, when calm has been restored, return to the situation with clarity about what response would reflect divine peace rather than human anxiety. A healthcare worker on the front lines of crisis uses this protocol between patient encounters. Those few moments of realignment make all the difference in my ability to bring a healing presence rather than transferring my own stress to vulnerable people. It's not about escaping reality, but about reconnecting with a deeper reality that enables me to engage challenges from a place of centered strength. Develop a practice of sacred pauses throughout your day, brief moments when you step out of automatic pilot and into conscious communion with me. Set gentle alarms on your phone or associate these pauses with transitions already present in your routine. Before starting your car, while waiting for water to boil, after completing a task, before entering a meeting. During these sacred pauses, simply whisper my name, Jesus, and become aware of my presence with you. Notice the sensations in your body, the sounds around you, the space within you. These momentary returns to presence gradually retrain your nervous system to default to calm rather than chaos, even amid life's inevitable storms. Address the physical dimension of your being, for body, mind, and spirit are intricately connected. Chronic stress manifests physically, and physical practices can cultivate spiritual calm. Implement gentle movement each day, perhaps a walk in nature, stretching exercises, or simply raising your arms in surrender while taking deep breaths. These practices release tension stored in the body and create spaciousness within. Pay attention to your breathing throughout the day. Anxiety typically produces shallow chest breathing that perpetuates stress. Consciously shift to deep abdominal breathing, inhaling slowly through your nose for a count of 4, holding briefly, then exhaling through your mouth for a count of 6. This simple adjustment signals your nervous system to move from fight or flight to rest and digest, creating physiological conditions conducive to spiritual peace. Nurture your physical temple with foods that support clarity and calm rather than agitation and fog. Reduce caffeine, sugar, and processed ingredients that create internal turbulence. Increase your intake of water, fresh fruits and vegetables, and foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids that support brain health. These choices may seem mundane, but they create the biological foundation for spiritual calm to flourish. Finally, establish a sacred evening routine that releases the day and prepares your spirit for restorative rest. Create a consistent time to begin winding down, signaling to your body and spirit that the day's work is complete. Dim the lights, silence your devices, and perhaps light a candle to symbolize bringing the day to a gentle close. Review the events of your day not with scrutiny, but with compassion. Identify moments when you experienced divine calm and moments when you lost your center. Neither cling to accomplishments nor condemn failures. Simply observe with the loving awareness that each day is part of a longer journey toward transformation. Release any unresolved situations from the day through this simple practice. Write down concerns that might disturb your rest, Then physically place the paper in a God box or drawer, symbolizing your transfer of these matters from your limited care to my limitless love. This concrete action helps your mind understand that you've done all you can for today. The night belongs to rest, not rumination. Close your day with these words from Psalm 4 verse 8. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. Allow these ancient words to carry you into restful surrender, trusting that while you sleep, I remain awake, continuing the work of redemption that doesn't depend on your striving. Revolutionize your life today. These practical steps are the difference between drowning in chaos and walking in divine peace. Share this video immediately with at least 7 people who need these life-changing practices. Your obedience to this prompting could be the lifeline someone has been desperately praying for. Declare your commitment. Press the like button right now as your sacred vow before heaven that you will implement these practices starting today. Your like is not just a digital action, but a spiritual declaration that you choose the path of peace. Secure your transformation. Subscribe to our channel without delay to receive the remaining steps in this divine pathway to unshakable peace. The enemy wants to keep this wisdom from you. Defeat his plans by joining our community of transformation. In our next segment, I will provide additional practical exercises that dive deeper into the cultivation of divine calmness. These steps you've learned today are just the beginning of your journey toward the serenity that can transform not only your life, but the lives of everyone you encounter. My precious child, now that you have begun establishing the foundational practices of divine calmness, let us deepen your journey with spiritual exercises that will transform your relationship with the inevitable storms of life. These practices move beyond the initial steps into a more profound engagement with the sources of true peace. Begin cultivating the practice of sacred listening. In your world of constant noise and perpetual speech, the ability to truly listen has become a rare and precious gift. Yet it is in silence and receptivity that divine wisdom is most clearly heard. Set aside 10 minutes each day for the sole purpose of listening, not speaking, not asking, not even silently formulating thoughts, but simply opening your heart to receive. Find a quiet place where interruptions are unlikely. Sit comfortably with your back straight, symbolizing alert receptivity. Place your hands open on your lap, physically expressing your readiness to receive rather than grasp. Begin with this simple prayer. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. Then allow silence to envelop you. At first, your mind will likely race with thoughts, plans, and distractions. Do not fight against this tendency, as resistance only creates inner tension. Instead, each time you notice your attention has wandered, gently return to an awareness of presence, like a parent lovingly guiding a child back to the path. Over time, with consistent practice, the intervals of true receptivity will lengthen. A spiritual director in our community describes this practice as creating a landing pad for the divine dove. She shares, "Most of us are so busy talking to God, talking about God, or talking to ourselves about our problems that we leave no space for the gentle descent of divine wisdom. Yet the solutions we seek, the comfort we crave, the direction we need, all are available when we learn to listen with the ear of the heart." Next, develop the practice of reframing your challenges through the lens of divine purpose. When you encounter difficulty, whether a minor inconvenience or a major crisis, pause before reacting and ask these 3 transformative questions. What might this situation be teaching me? How could this challenge be developing qualities I need? Where is the invitation to trust more deeply embedded in this difficulty? These questions shift your perspective from victim consciousness to spiritual apprenticeship. They transform problems from merely things to overcome into opportunities for growth. This reframing doesn't deny the reality of suffering, but places it within a larger context of purpose and meaning. A father in our fellowship practiced this reframing when his teenage son went through a period of rebellion and distance. Rather than focusing solely on changing his son's behavior, he asked himself what qualities this painful season might be developing in him as a parent. Perhaps patience, unconditional love, or surrender of control. This shift allowed him to respond from wisdom rather than reactivity, ultimately creating space for reconciliation that force could never have achieved. Intentionally cultivate relationships that support your journey toward divine calmness. Just as certain environments naturally foster growth in particular plants, so do certain relational contexts nurture spiritual qualities. Identify people in your life who demonstrate the peace you seek, whose presence feels like a sanctuary rather than a storm. Seek regular connection with these peace bearers, whether through formal spiritual direction, casual conversations, or simply time spent in their calming presence. At the same time, establish loving boundaries with those whose chaotic energy consistently disturbs your center. This isn't about avoiding difficult people, but about ensuring you have sufficient spiritual resources to engage difficulty without being overwhelmed by it. A woman in our community created what she calls her Circle of Serenity, a small group of friends committed to cultivating divine calm in their lives. They meet monthly to share their journeys, practice contemplative prayer together, and hold each other accountable to their spiritual practices. Having companions on this path makes all the difference, she testifies. When my own peace falters, I can borrow strength from those who remain centered until my own equilibrium returns. Develop a practice of sacred imagination to prepare for predictable stressors. Rather than hoping you'll magically respond with calm when challenging situations arise, intentionally rehearse peaceful responses through contemplative visualization. Identify an upcoming situation that typically triggers anxiety or reactivity for you. Perhaps a difficult conversation, a presentation, a medical appointment, or a family gathering. Find a quiet moment to close your eyes and visualize the event unfolding in detail, but with a crucial difference. See yourself responding from a place of divine calmness rather than human fear. Imagine yourself breathing deeply when tension rises. See yourself pausing before responding to provocation. Visualize the physical sensations of peace flowing through your body even as external pressures mount. Picture my presence with you, my hand on your shoulder, my wisdom guiding your words and actions. This practice isn't magical thinking, but neural retraining. By repeatedly visualizing calm responses, you create alternative neural pathways that become increasingly accessible during actual stress. Athletes use this visualization technique to prepare for competition. Spiritual athletes can use it to prepare for life's inevitable challenges. A teacher in our community practices this sacred imagination before parent-teacher conferences that historically provoked anxiety. I visualize myself seated at the table, centered and calm regardless of what concerns arise. I imagine breathing deeply between responses, speaking truth with both clarity and compassion. I picture Jesus standing beside me, his peace flowing through me. When the actual conference arrives, my body and spirit recognize the scenario we've already rehearsed in peace, making it easier to access that same peace in the moment. Implement a practice of sacred review to extract wisdom from your experiences. Each week, set aside 30 minutes for this deeper reflection on your journey toward divine calmness. Unlike the daily evening review, this weekly practice looks for patterns and insights across multiple days. Find a comfortable space where you won't be interrupted. Begin by lighting a candle and taking several centering breaths. Open with this simple prayer. Divine Teacher, show me what I need to see about my journey this week. Then, using your journal, reflect on these questions. When did I experience deep peace this week? What conditions or choices contributed to that experience? When did I lose my center? What internal or external factors preceded that loss? What one adjustment would most support my growth in divine calmness in the coming week? This practice transforms your experiences, both successes and struggles, into wisdom that guides your continuing journey. It prevents you from making the same mistakes repeatedly and helps you identify the specific conditions that nurture your unique spirit. A counselor in our community shares, "This weekly review completely transformed my spiritual growth. Before implementing it, I felt like I was constantly starting over, facing the same challenges without making progress. The sacred review helps me recognize subtle patterns I wouldn't otherwise notice and make strategic adjustments that gradually reshape my default responses." Develop a practice of blessing those who disturb your peace. When someone triggers anxiety, anger, or frustration in you, silently offer this prayer. May you be blessed with the peace you need. May I be blessed with the peace I need. This simple practice interrupts the natural tendency toward resentment and reframes the interaction as an opportunity for mutual healing rather than conflict. A nurse working in a high-stress emergency department practices this blessing with difficult patients and colleagues. Instead of allowing challenging interactions to deplete my spiritual reserves, I've learned to see them as invitations to practice what I truly believe, that all of us, especially those behaving poorly, are children of God in need of blessing. This shift has completely transformed my experience of work, allowing me to maintain inner calm even in externally chaotic situations. Create a peace protocol for your home environment. Your physical space affects your spiritual state more profoundly than you might realize. Work with your household to establish practices that nurture collective calm rather than amplify individual stress. Designate a sacred corner or room in your home specifically for quiet reflection and prayer. Even a small chair by a window with a candle and Bible can become a visual reminder of the divine presence within your walls. Establish regular times of shared silence, perhaps 5 minutes before dinner or 15 minutes on Sunday morning, when all devices are turned off and the household simply rests in peaceful presence. Create agreements about how conflict will be handled when it inevitably arises. Perhaps adopt a family saying like peace before resolution, reminding everyone that maintaining respectful connection takes precedence over winning arguments. Consider implementing a pause protocol, where anyone feeling overwhelmed can request a temporary break before continuing difficult conversations. A family in our fellowship created a peace jar filled with slips of paper, each listing a brief calm-restoring activity. 3 deep breaths, a short walk outside, naming 5 things you're grateful for, hugging for 20 seconds, or speaking an affirmation together. When tension rises, someone takes a slip from the jar, and everyone participates in the activity before addressing the issue at hand. These simple practices have completely changed our home atmosphere, the mother shares. We still have disagreements and challenges, but they no longer derail our peace. We've learned to face problems from a centered place rather than a reactive one. Practice spiritual hospitality toward your emotions. Many believers mistakenly assume that divine calmness means never experiencing difficult feelings. This misunderstanding leads to suppression rather than transformation. True serenity doesn't eliminate emotions, but creates spacious hospitality for them within a larger context of trust. When challenging emotions arise, anger, fear, grief, disappointment, practice naming them specifically rather than avoiding or indulging them. I notice fear arising in me right now is more conducive to peace than either I shouldn't be afraid, or everything is terrifying. Once you've named the emotion, visualize creating space around it rather than identifying with it. Instead of I am angry, which suggests the emotion has become your identity, recognize, I am experiencing anger passing through me. This subtle shift prevents emotions from overwhelming your sense of self, while still honoring their presence and message. A spiritual director describes this practice as setting a larger table. She explains, when we make room for all our emotions within the spaciousness of God's love, they can deliver their wisdom without dominating the conversation. Difficult feelings become guests at the table rather than tyrants ruling the house. Transform your spiritual life today. These practices are not optional for believers serious about living in divine peace. Share this video immediately with your entire spiritual community. Those struggling with anxiety, fear, and chaos need these sacred practices to break free from the enemy's grip. Seal your sacred commitment. Press the like button right now as your covenant before heaven that you will implement at least 3 of these practices this very week. This simple action declares to the spiritual realm that you choose the path of divine serenity. Secure your ongoing transformation. Subscribe to our channel this instant to receive the remaining wisdom in this life-changing series. The enemy will do anything to prevent you from developing these spiritual disciplines. Defeat his plans by joining our community of transformation. In our next segment, I will share additional practical exercises that will further deepen your capacity for divine calmness. The journey we're on together leads to a peace that surpasses understanding, a peace the world cannot give and cannot take away. My faithful one, as you continue your journey toward divine calmness, let me share additional resources that will support your transformation. While the inner work we have discussed forms the heart of spiritual serenity, external supports can nurture and sustain this sacred quality. These resources will help you build resilience for the long path ahead and provide refreshment when your spirit grows weary. First, immerse yourself in the sacred texts that record my life and teachings. The Gospels are not merely historical documents, but living waters that can quench your spiritual thirst. Develop a practice of Lectio Divina, divine reading, with passages that specifically illustrate my calmness in chaos. Begin with foundational texts that capture my serenity in various situations. The account in Mark where I slept peacefully during the violent storm. The moment in John's Gospel when I calmly wrote in the sand while others demanded harsh judgment. My time of surrendered prayer in Gethsemane, recorded by Matthew. My words of forgiveness spoken from the cross in Luke. And my eternal promise of peace found in the 14th chapter of John. For each passage, follow the ancient fourfold path of divine reading. First, read the words slowly, perhaps allowing them to be heard aloud. Then meditate on the text, pondering how it speaks to your current circumstances. Next, pray in response to what you've received. And finally, move beyond words into contemplative rest, simply dwelling in presence without analysis or effort. A biblical scholar in our community describes this practice as drinking from the living waters rather than merely analyzing the cup. She explains, when we approach Scripture not just for information but for transformation, these ancient words become vessels of present peace. The accounts of Christ's calmness aren't just stories to admire but energies to absorb. Next, explore the rich treasury of Christian contemplative literature that spans centuries. The Desert Fathers and Mothers, the medieval mystics, and contemporary spiritual writers all offer unique perspectives on cultivating divine peace amid life's challenges. Their collective wisdom creates a map for the journey you've undertaken. Consider soul-nourishing texts from across the centuries that have guided countless seekers toward divine peace. Brother Lawrence's gentle instructions on practicing God's presence in everyday tasks. The anonymous medieval classic, The Cloud of Unknowing, with its wisdom on surrendering to divine mystery. Thomas Merton's profound New Seeds of Contemplation. Jean-Pierre de Caussade's liberating teachings on abandonment to divine providence. Henri Nouwen's insights on prayer in the way of the heart, and his meditations on unconditional love in The Return of the Prodigal Son, and Richard Rohr's expansive vision in Everything Belongs. A spiritual director suggests creating a wisdom rotation, reading small portions from these texts each day rather than consuming them quickly. These books aren't meant to be devoured but digested, she advises. A paragraph contemplated deeply often yields more transformation than chapters skimmed superficially. Discover the power of sacred music to bypass your analytical mind and speak directly to your spirit. Throughout history, believers have created melodies and harmonies that evoke the peace that surpasses understanding. Create playlists of music that specifically nurtures calm in your soul, whether traditional hymns, Teai's chants, instrumental compositions, or contemporary worship songs focused on peace and trust. A music therapist in our fellowship shares, certain musical patterns actually affect the neural pathways and rhythms of our bodies, helping shift us from the sympathetic fight or flight to the parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. When I feel anxiety rising, sacred music often restores my equilibrium more quickly than any other intervention. Consider the rich variety of musical resources that can bathe your spirit in peace. Collections of peaceful hymns that have carried believers through centuries of storms, ancient Gregorian chant recordings that align breath and spirit, the simple, meditative songs from the Teai's community that open the heart to divine presence, instrumental arrangements of sacred music that speak beyond words, gentle melodies interwoven with nature sounds that remind you of my voice in creation, and contemporary worship songs that focus specifically on divine peace and presence. Use this music not just for background ambience, but for intentional meditation. Set aside time to simply listen, allowing the harmonies to wash over you like gentle waves, carrying away tension and restoring divine perspective. Explore the support of spiritual community through groups specifically focused on contemplative practice. While individual disciplines form the foundation of divine calmness, the journey deepens significantly when shared with others on the same path. Many churches and spiritual centers offer centering prayer groups, contemplative retreats, or spiritual formation classes. If such gatherings aren't available locally, consider online communities dedicated to cultivating spiritual peace. These virtual sanctuaries can provide guidance, accountability, and fellowship even across geographical distances. The shared commitment to divine calmness creates a powerful field of support for everyone involved. A pastor who leads contemplative prayer groups observes, something remarkable happens when believers gather specifically to practice presence together. The collective experience seems to magnify individual capacity. People who struggle to maintain focus for 5 minutes alone often find they can rest in peaceful silence for 20 minutes in community. Consider the various types of supportive communities that might nourish your journey. Gather with others in centering prayer groups where shared silence deepens individual practice. Participate in contemplative retreats ranging from a single day to extended periods of guided reflection. Engage in spiritual formation classes that combine teaching with practice. Connect with online meditation communities that transcend geographical limitations. Enter into spiritual direction relationships or groups for personalized guidance. Experience the unique atmosphere of Teis or contemplative worship services, or visit silent retreat centers where the very environment supports your inner journey. Discover the transformative power of charitable service as a pathway to peace. It may seem counterintuitive that adding another activity to your life could increase your sense of calm, but service performed from a centered heart, rather than anxious obligation, often restores perspective in remarkable ways. When you extend compassion to others, something profound happens within you. The constriction of self-focus, a primary source of anxiety, gives way to the expansiveness of love. Your own troubles find proper proportion when placed alongside the suffering of others. The divine peace I promised flows most freely through channels of compassion. A physician who volunteers at a homeless clinic shares, "After my most exhausting days at the hospital, I often feel too depleted to serve at the clinic. Yet invariably, I leave those evening hours with the homeless feeling more energized and peaceful than when I arrived. Something about stepping outside my own concerns and simply being present to others in need restores my spiritual equilibrium in ways nothing else can." Consider the many forms that service might take in your life. Spending time with the elderly or homebound whose loneliness is a silent suffering. Offering nourishment and dignity by serving meals to those without homes. Providing stability and hope through mentoring young people facing difficult circumstances. Sharing your professional talents with organizations working for the common good. Creating expressions of care and comfort for those walking through the valley of grief, extending hospitality to refugees and immigrants navigating unfamiliar lands, or bringing light into darkness through visiting those in prison, remembering my words that when you serve the least of these, you serve me. The key is approaching service not as another obligation that drains your resources, but as a sacred exchange in which you offer presence while simultaneously receiving the gift of expanded perspective. Explore the healing connection between nature and spiritual calm. Throughout my earthly ministry, I often withdrew to natural settings, mountains, gardens, lockshores, for renewal and communion with the Father. Creation itself offers a sanctuary where divine peace can be more easily perceived and received. Develop a practice of contemplative walks where you move slowly through natural settings, fully present to the details around you. The texture of bark, the pattern of leaves, the song of birds, the play of light and shadow. Let these observations become portals to wonder, gratitude, and the recognition of the same divine presence that holds both the universe and your own life. A spiritual retreat leader suggests, ask for a word or image from God at the beginning of your contemplative walk. Then remain attentive to how creation might be offering that very gift through what you encounter. A fallen leaf speaks of surrender, a flowing stream of trust, a mountain of perspective, a bird in flight of freedom from anxiety. Nature becomes not just a backdrop, but a living message of divine wisdom. Consider the many ways you might encounter divine peace through nature. Walking contemplatively during the sacred threshold times of dawn or dusk when the veil between worlds feels thinnest. Sitting in meditation beside flowing water that mirrors the constant yet ever-changing nature of divine presence. Watching clouds drift across the vast sky as a practice of releasing attachment and control. Engaging in gardening as a tactile communion with the mysteries of growth, death, and renewal. Immersing yourself in forest bathing, the Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku that opens all senses to the healing presence of trees. Retreating to desert or wilderness landscapes where prophets and mystics have encountered the divine for millennia. Or seeking the perspective-altering solitude of mountains, where the concerns of daily life find their proper proportion against the vastness of creation. Explore the ancient Christian practice of creating a rule of life, a thoughtful, intentional pattern of living that creates the conditions for divine peace to flourish. Unlike rigid schedules that can become another source of stress, a rule of life provides a flexible framework that honors both spiritual aspirations and human limitations. Work with a spiritual director or trusted mentor to develop a rule that addresses all dimensions of your being: physical, rest, nutrition, movement, mental learning, creativity, focus, emotional expression, processing, boundaries, relational, connection, service, reconciliation, and spiritual, prayer, scripture, worship. A monastery abbot explains, a rule of life isn't primarily about constraint, but about liberation. By creating intentional patterns that align with your deepest values, you free yourself from the tyranny of constant decision-making and the fragmentation of competing demands. Within this sacred structure, divine peace finds space to flourish. Consider the essential elements that might form your personal rule of life, weaving regular rhythms of prayer and scripture throughout your days like threads that hold the fabric together, honoring the sacred wisdom of Sabbath rest in a culture that has forgotten how to cease striving, embracing periods of fasting or simplicity that create space for greater awareness, establishing thoughtful boundaries around technology to prevent digital fragmentation of your attention, allocating regular times for silence and solitude to hear the still, small voice often drowned out by noise, nurturing authentic community connections that both challenge and support your growth, practicing mindful care for creation as an extension of divine love, honoring your body as a temple through attentive stewardship, allowing artistic and creative expression to connect you with the Creator's joy, making sustainable commitments to service that flow from abundance rather than depletion, and engaging in continuous learning and growth as a reflection of the dynamic nature of spiritual life. Finally, consider the possibility of receiving spiritual direction, the ancient practice of soul accompaniment on the journey toward deeper communion with God. A skilled spiritual director offers the gifts of deep listening, discerning questions, and gentle accountability as you navigate the path of divine calmness. Unlike counseling, which typically focuses on problem solving, or mentoring, which emphasizes skill development, spiritual direction centers on discerning the movement of the Spirit in your life. The director serves not as an authority, but as a companion with training in detecting the subtle whispers of divine invitation within your experiences. A longtime recipient of spiritual direction shares, "Having someone who listens not just to my words, but for the deeper currents beneath them has been transformative. My director notices patterns I miss, asks questions that open new perspectives, and holds space for my journey without trying to fix or control it. This relationship has been an anchor during my stormiest seasons." Various pathways can lead you to finding spiritual direction when you feel ready for this sacred companionship. Organizations like Spiritual Direction International maintain directories of trained directors. Local retreat centers often provide connections to spiritual guides affiliated with their ministries. Seminaries and divinity schools frequently offer spiritual direction through their pastoral programs. Contemplative religious orders carry centuries of wisdom in accompanying souls on their journey, and many local congregations have members specifically trained in this ministry of holy listening. Remember, beloved, that these external resources serve the inner journey. They are not substitutes for the fundamental practices of presence, surrender, and trust, but supports that nurture these essential qualities. Use them not as achievements to accomplish, but as wells from which to draw living water when your spirit thirsts for peace. Your transformation awaits. These resources are the missing pieces many believers never discover. Share this information immediately with everyone in your spiritual circle. Someone you know is struggling to find peace because they lack these critical supports. Be their guide to freedom. Declare your commitment to growth. Press the like button right now as your sacred pledge to explore at least 2 of these resources this very week. Your simple action is a powerful declaration of your determination to live in divine peace. Join our community of transformation. Subscribe to our channel this moment to continue receiving these life-changing revelations. Each subscription represents another soul choosing to walk the narrow path of divine peace in a chaotic world. In our next segment, I will share a personal testimony that will inspire and encourage you as you continue this sacred journey toward unshakable peace. The path we walk together leads to a serenity that transforms not only your own life, but the lives of everyone you encounter. My cherished one, as we journey together through this path of divine calmness, I want to share with you a story, not from the ancient texts, but from the living testament of a modern disciple whose life was transformed by the very principles we've been exploring. Through her experience, you will see my teachings made flesh once more, my peace embodied in contemporary circumstances not unlike your own. Rachel was known among her friends and colleagues as the Hurricane, a woman perpetually in motion, constantly juggling responsibilities, priding herself on her ability to multitask and manage chaos. On the surface, her life appeared successful, a thriving career, a beautiful family, active involvement in her community and church. Yet beneath this carefully maintained facade lay a soul in turmoil, anxious thoughts that prevented sleep, relationships strained by her inability to be fully present, physical symptoms of stress that no medication seemed to address, and a spiritual emptiness that grew despite her faithful attendance at religious services. "I was drowning," Rachel later confessed, but I had convinced myself and everyone around me that I was simply swimming in the fast lane. Exhaustion had become my normal state. Anxiety was my constant companion. I mistook adrenaline for purpose and busyness for significance. I was desperately trying to prove my worth through constant productivity, all while feeling more and more disconnected from myself, from others, and from God. The breaking point came during what should have been a joyful family vacation. After spending months planning the perfect getaway, Rachel found herself unable to be present for any of it. While her husband and children played on the beach, she sat under an umbrella answering work emails. While they marveled at the sunset, she was mentally reviewing her to-do list for their return. On the third day, her 7-year-old daughter approached her with tears in her eyes and asked a question that pierced Rachel's heart. "Mommy, why did you even come with us if you're not really here?" In that moment, something broke open within her. It was as if Jesus himself had spoken through my daughter, Rachel shared. I suddenly saw with perfect clarity what I had become, physically present but spiritually and emotionally absent from my own life. I was missing everything that actually mattered while chasing what ultimately didn't. That night, after her family had gone to sleep, Rachel walked alone on the beach, tears streaming down her face. She cried out in prayer with a rawness she hadn't allowed herself in years. "Lord, I can't do this anymore. I don't even know who I am beneath all this doing. Help me find my way back to peace. Help me find my way back to you." As she stood there with the waves washing over her feet, a memory surfaced, a Bible story from her childhood about me sleeping peacefully in the boat during a violent storm. It struck me that Jesus wasn't calm because there was no storm, Rachel realized. He was calm in the middle of the storm. And in that moment, I understood that peace wasn't about changing my circumstances, but about finding an unshakable center within them. Upon returning home, Rachel took a step that seemed radical within her achievement-oriented culture. She sought help. She found a spiritual director who guided her toward contemplative practices. She joined a small group focused on spiritual formation rather than mere Bible study. She began reading classic texts on divine presence and interior silence. Most significantly, she committed to 2 non-negotiable practices: 20 minutes of silent prayer each morning, and a full Sabbath day each week with no work, no screens, and no agenda beyond rest and relationship. The hardest part, Rachel confessed, was facing the withdrawal symptoms from my addiction to busyness. When I first tried to sit in silence, my mind raced so frantically I thought I might explode. When I first practiced Sabbath, I felt itchy with anxiety about all I wasn't accomplishing. These practices exposed how dependent I had become on constant activity to avoid my deeper fears and emptiness. Yet she persevered, gradually increasing her capacity for presence and peace. She placed visible reminders around her home and office, a small boat figure on her desk, the word peace written on her bathroom mirror, a smooth stone in her pocket, each one calling her back to center when she began to drift into old patterns of frenzy and fragmentation. The transformation didn't happen overnight. There were days of profound resistance, moments of backsliding into familiar chaos, seasons when progress seemed imperceptible. The journey toward peace isn't linear, Rachel discovered. It's more like the tide, sometimes advancing, sometimes receding, but over time, gradually reshaping the shoreline of your life. As months passed, subtle shifts occurred. Rachel noticed she was sleeping through the night without anxious thoughts jolting her awake. Colleagues commented that meetings with her felt different, more focused, more truly productive, yet somehow less pressured. Her husband observed that she seemed to be listening with her whole self, rather than with divided attention. Her children began seeking her out for conversations, sensing her newfound availability. The most profound changes, however, were interior. I began to experience moments of genuine peace that had nothing to do with my circumstances, Rachel shared. I could be in the midst of a work crisis, a family conflict, or a health scare, yet feel an inexplicable calm at my center. Not a numbing detachment, but a grounded awareness that allowed me to respond from wisdom rather than reactivity. This interior peace gradually affected her external choices. Rachel recognized that some of her commitments were driven not by genuine calling, but by fear, people-pleasing, or identity confusion. With her spiritual director's support, she began a thoughtful process of discernment, releasing responsibilities that drained her spirit and deepening her engagement with work that truly aligned with her purpose. I didn't abandon my career or withdraw from service, Rachel clarified. But I stopped treating my calendar like a battlefield and started treating it like a garden, intentionally cultivating what could truly flourish rather than cramming in as much as possible. I began to see that effectiveness flows from centeredness, not from frantic activity. The transformation extended to her relationships as well. As Rachel's internal storms calmed, she discovered a greater capacity for compassion toward others. When I was perpetually anxious, everyone else seemed like a threat or an obstacle, she admitted. Now I could see them as fellow travelers, each carrying their own burdens. My newfound peace didn't isolate me from others' suffering, but actually enabled me to be more present to it without becoming overwhelmed. Even her experience of faith shifted dramatically. Before, my relationship with God was another item on my to-do list, Rachel confessed. I approached spiritual disciplines with the same achievement mindset that dominated the rest of my life, tracking my Bible reading, evaluating my prayer performance, constantly measuring whether I was doing enough. Now I began to experience God as an actual presence, not a demanding taskmaster, but a compassionate companion on the journey. This shift in perception transformed Rachel's ministry within her community. Rather than serving out of guilt or obligation, she found herself naturally responding to needs from a place of genuine love. I stopped keeping score of my good deeds, she explained, and started simply asking, how can I be a vessel of God's peace in this situation? Sometimes that meant practical help, sometimes a listening ear, sometimes respectful boundaries, but always coming from centered presence rather than anxious striving. 3 years into her journey, a true test of Rachel's transformation arrived in the form of a serious health diagnosis. In the past, such news would have sent her into a spiral of fear and frantic information gathering. Instead, she received the diagnosis with a calm that astonished her doctor. Of course I felt fear, Rachel acknowledged, but it no longer defined me or controlled my response. I could feel the fear without becoming it. I could take necessary actions without panic. I could remain present to my loved ones rather than withdrawing into anxious rumination. The peace I had cultivated in smaller challenges was now carrying me through the storm I had always dreaded most. Throughout her treatment, Rachel continued her practices of silence, scripture, and Sabbath. On her worst days physically, she found herself returning to the simple prayer she had learned. Jesus, you are with me in this boat. This anchoring truth sustained her when test results were concerning, when treatments were painful, when the future seemed uncertain. The most powerful testimony, her husband later shared, wasn't that Rachel never felt afraid or sad during her illness, but that she continued to radiate a peace that made our home a sanctuary rather than a battle zone. Her calm created space for all of us to process our emotions honestly. Her trust didn't manifest as toxic positivity, but as genuine serenity in the face of unknown outcomes. Today, Rachel is in remission, though she lives with the knowledge that her health remains vulnerable. She has become a quiet force for transformation in her community, not through dramatic testimony, but through embodied peace. Young mothers seek her counsel when they feel overwhelmed. Colleagues ask her secret when they burn out. Fellow patients find hope in her centered presence during treatments. I don't have a perfect life or perfect peace, Rachel acknowledges. I still have moments of anxiety, days when centering is difficult, seasons when old patterns try to reassert themselves. The difference is that I now recognize these as invitations to return to my true center, rather than as evidence of failure. The path of peace isn't about achieving a permanent state of calm, but about continually coming home to the one who is our peace. Rachel's journey illustrates the reality of transformation available to all who commit to the path of divine calmness. Her testimony is not exceptional but exemplary, a lived demonstration of what happens when the principles and practices we've explored move from concept to commitment, from information to incarnation. Her life echoes the truth I spoke to my disciples. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. The peace Rachel discovered, the peace available to you, is not dependent on perfect circumstances, seamless performance, or the absence of storms. It flows from the unshakable reality of my presence with you in the boat, whatever waters you navigate. This testimony could be your story. The transformation Rachel experienced is available to you right now. Her journey from chaos to calm can become your journey. Share this video immediately with everyone you know who is drowning in anxiety and needs to hear that divine peace is possible. Declare your decision. Press the like button right now as your sacred commitment that today marks the beginning of your journey towards supernatural calm. Your simple action is a powerful declaration that you choose divine peace over worldly chaos. Join our movement of transformation. Subscribe to our channel without delay to become part of this growing community of believers who are discovering the life-changing power of Jesus' peace. Your subscription connects you with others walking this sacred path. In our next segment, I will guide you through specific calls to action that will help you begin implementing everything you've learned. The time for transformation is now. The peace you seek is waiting. My beloved child, we have journeyed far together through the principles, practices, and possibilities of divine calmness. You have glimpsed what this sacred serenity might look like in your own life. You have received tools to cultivate it amidst your unique circumstances. You have witnessed its transformative power in the lives of others. Now comes the moment of decision, the threshold between knowledge and application, between understanding and experience, between aspiration and transformation. The peace I offer is not merely a concept to contemplate, but a way of being to embody. It awaits your active response, your deliberate choice, your wholehearted engagement. Let me invite you now to specific actions that will translate everything you've received into lived reality, beginning today. First, I call you to make a sacred covenant with yourself and with me. This very day, set aside 30 minutes of uninterrupted solitude. Find a quiet place where you can be fully present without distractions. Light a candle if you wish, symbolizing the divine light that illuminates your path toward peace. Open your journal to a fresh page and write at the top, "My covenant of divine calmness." Beneath this heading, write these words: "On this day I, your name, choose to begin the journey toward the peace that Jesus demonstrated and promised. I acknowledge that I cannot create this peace through my own striving, but can only receive it through surrender, practice, and grace. I commit to the disciplines that nurture divine calmness, trusting that the one who begins this good work in me will be faithful to complete it." Then identify 3 specific practices from all we have explored that resonate most deeply with your spirit. Perhaps the sacred morning routine speaks to your need for a centered beginning to each day. Perhaps the practice of breath prayer answers your longing for connection throughout your activities. Perhaps the weekly sacred review addresses your desire for greater awareness and intentionality. Choose practices that both inspire you and challenge you, remembering that transformation happens at the edge of your comfort zone, not within it. Write these 3 commitments clearly, including when and how you will implement them. Be specific rather than general, measurable rather than vague. Not, "I will pray more," but "I will begin each day with 10 minutes of silent communion before looking at any devices." Not, "I will try to be more present," but "I will set 3 daily alarms as reminders to pause, breathe, and reconnect with divine presence." Conclude your covenant with these words: "I recognize that I will sometimes falter in these commitments. When I do, I will respond not with condemnation but with compassion, gently returning to the path without harsh judgment. I trust not in my perfect performance, but in the perfect love that guides my imperfect journey." Sign and date this covenant. Consider inviting a trusted spiritual companion to witness your commitment, providing both accountability and encouragement as you move forward. Then place the written covenant where you will see it daily, perhaps beside your bed, on your bathroom mirror, or at your workspace, as a constant reminder of the path you have chosen. Next, I call you to create a visible symbol of your commitment to divine calmness. Select an object that will serve as a tangible reminder of the peace you seek. Perhaps a small river stone, a cross, a feather, a shell, or another item that carries personal significance. Hold this object in your hand and pray, dedicating it as a sacred anchor for your journey. Carry this symbol with you daily, placing it where it will interrupt patterns of anxiety and reactivity. When stress rises, touch this object intentionally, remembering my presence with you in that moment. When decisions loom, hold it as a reminder to respond from centered wisdom rather than reactive fear. When relationships become strained, let it call you back to the compassionate presence you wish to embody. A businessman in our community keeps a smooth stone in his pocket during high-stakes negotiations. "When I feel tension rising," he shares, "I touch the stone and remember Jesus calming the storm. It creates a momentary pause that allows me to choose my response rather than merely react. That tiny space between stimulus and response has transformed my leadership." I call you also to reshape your environment to support your journey toward divine peace. Our physical spaces profoundly affect our spiritual states, either nurturing calm or feeding chaos. Walk through your home and workspace with new awareness, asking, "Does this environment foster the peace I seek or hinder it?" Consider creating a dedicated prayer corner in your home, a small sacred space with a comfortable chair, perhaps a candle, a Bible, and a few meaningful symbols. This need not be elaborate. Even in the smallest dwelling, a windowsill or corner can become a sanctuary of peace. The physical act of going to this space signals to your body and spirit a shift from doing to being, from productivity to presence. Examine your digital environment as well, recognizing how your devices may be fragmenting your attention and disturbing your peace. Delete apps that trigger comparison or anxiety. Adjust notification settings to serve your priorities rather than hijack them. Create technology-free zones and times in your home, perhaps the dinner table, the bedroom, or the first and last hour of each day. A mother in our fellowship transformed her family's relationship with technology through such boundaries. The constant pings and alerts were like little earthquakes in our home, she shares. When we established tech-free zones and times, we rediscovered conversation, creativity, and genuine rest. The quality of our collective peace improved dramatically. I call you also to seek companions for your journey. The path toward divine calmness, while deeply personal, need not be solitary. Identify at least one person with whom you can share your commitment to this way of being. This might be a formal relationship, such as working with a spiritual director, or an informal connection with a friend who shares your hunger for a more centered life. Meet regularly with this companion, whether in person or virtually, to share your experiences, challenges, and growth. Be vulnerable about your struggles rather than presenting a polished facade. Ask for prayer when your practice falters. Celebrate moments of genuine peace, however brief or subtle. The accountability and encouragement of a fellow traveler can sustain you when the path becomes difficult. A young professional found such companionship in a weekly early morning meeting with a mentor. Knowing I'll be asked about my practice motivates me on days when discipline feels impossible, he shares. And having someone celebrate the small victories with me, moments when I responded with calm instead of anxiety, helps me recognize progress I might otherwise miss. I call you to begin seeing the storms of your life not as obstacles to peace, but as opportunities to practice it. The challenges you face, difficult relationships, work pressures, health concerns, financial stresses, are not merely problems to solve, but invitations to embody a different way of being in the midst of turbulence. The next time anxiety rises within you, pause and say, "This is not just a problem, it is a practice opportunity." Here, in this very situation that threatens my peace, I can discover a deeper peace that circumstances cannot touch. Then implement one of the practices we've explored, perhaps 3 conscious breaths, a moment of surrender, or the simple prayer, "Jesus, you are with me in this boat." A healthcare worker practicing this perspective shift shares, "When I started viewing difficult patients as opportunities to practice peace rather than threats to my equilibrium, everything changed. Instead of dreading certain names on my schedule, I began seeing them as my greatest teachers. My question shifted from, how can I get through this interaction, to how can I bring centered presence to this person in pain?" Finally, and most importantly, I call you to release the idea that divine calmness is something you must achieve through your own effort. The peace I offer is ultimately a gift to be received, rather than a state to be attained. Your practices and commitments create space for this gift, but the peace itself flows from my presence, not your performance. Begin each day with this simple acknowledgement. Divine peace is already available to me. It is not something I create, but something I receive. Today I open myself to this gift, trusting not in my perfect practice, but in perfect love. This receptive stance liberates you from turning spiritual discipline into another form of striving. It allows for grace in the journey, for the natural ebbs and flows of growth, for the reality that transformation happens gradually rather than instantly. It keeps the focus on relationship rather than achievement, on love rather than technique. A spiritual director describes this orientation as practicing in a hammock rather than on a tightrope. She explains, "When we see spiritual practices as ways of creating space for grace rather than earning peace through perfect performance, we can relax into the journey. We're held in divine love even when our practice falters, even when peace seems distant. This trust itself becomes a form of peace. Take these life-changing actions today. The divine calmness you've learned about will remain merely information until you make these commitments. Share this video immediately with at least 10 people who need to join you on this transformative journey. Your obedience to this prompting could literally save someone from drowning in anxiety. Declare your decision. Press the like button, Right now is your public commitment before heaven and earth that today is your turning point from chaos to divine peace. Your like is not just digital engagement, but a spiritual line in the sand. The moment you chose a different way of being. Join our community of transformation. Subscribe to our channel this instant to continue receiving divine wisdom that will nurture your journey toward unshakable peace. Each new teaching builds upon what you've learned today, creating a pathway to the serenity your soul craves. In our final segment, I will share closing thoughts that will inspire and equip you as you begin implementing these sacred commitments. The journey ahead will transform not only your own experience, but your impact on everyone around you. My precious child, as our journey together draws to a close, I want to leave you with final words of encouragement and wisdom. The path of divine calmness stretches before you, not as a distant ideal but as a living possibility, available in this very moment and in all the moments to come. Though our time together in this message concludes, the transformation we've begun remains ongoing, unfolding in the sacred space where my eternal presence meets your daily experience. Remember that the calmness I demonstrated throughout my earthly ministry was not merely a personal trait, but a divine gift meant to be shared. When I slept peacefully in the storm-tossed boat, when I stood silent before accusers, when I forgave from the cross, these were not just historical events, but timeless invitations into a different way of being. The same peace that flowed through me then flows toward you now, like a river seeking its course through the landscape of your life. The world around you will continue to churn with chaos. Headlines will proclaim reasons for fear. Relationships will present challenges. Work will make demands. Health may fluctuate. Finances may concern. None of these external realities can be fully controlled. But the extraordinary truth we've explored together is that your internal reality, your spiritual center, can remain anchored regardless of external conditions. This divine calmness is not an escape from reality, but a deeper engagement with it. It doesn't remove you from life's storms, but equips you to navigate them with wisdom and grace. It doesn't promise absence of pain, but offers presence in the midst of suffering. It doesn't eliminate problems, but transforms your relationship to them. In the memorable words of a wise elder, peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of God. As you implement the principles and practices we've explored, remember that transformation is both immediate and gradual. There will be moments of breakthrough when divine peace floods your consciousness with sudden clarity. There will also be seasons of subtle growth when progress is imperceptible until you look back and recognize how far you've come. Honor both experiences as sacred parts of the journey. Be gentle with yourself when you falter, as all seekers do. The path toward divine calmness is not a straight line but a spiral, often revisiting familiar challenges at deeper levels. What may seem like regression is frequently preparation for breakthrough. The moments when peace feels most elusive are often preludes to its deeper discovery, just as the darkest hour precedes the dawn. Remember also that divine calmness is not a solitary achievement, but a communal gift. As you cultivate this quality within yourself, it naturally overflows to those around you. Without preaching or imposing, your centered presence creates space for others to find their own equilibrium. Your non-anxious response to pressure demonstrates an alternative to reactivity. Your compassionate engagement with suffering offers hope to fellow travelers. A hospice nurse who embraced this journey shares, "The patients and families I serve are facing life's ultimate storm. They don't need my anxiety added to their burden. They need a calm, compassionate presence that reminds them they're not alone in the darkness. The peace I've cultivated doesn't make me immune to grief, but it allows me to hold space for others without drowning in the intensity of their pain." This ripple effect of peace extends beyond your immediate circle. In a world fractured by division and fear, each person who chooses centered presence over reactivity becomes a healing force. Your commitment to divine calmness is not merely personal wellness, but participation in the redemption of our collective experience. Never underestimate the impact of one peaceful presence in a chaotic environment. As you continue this sacred journey, I invite you to return to the foundational truth that anchors all our exploration. You are infinitely loved. Before you attempt any practice, before you make any commitment, before you navigate any storm, remember that you are held in eternal love. This love preceded your first awareness, sustains your present journey, and awaits you beyond your final breath. It is the current that carries you when your own strength falters. A contemplative teacher describes this reality as swimming in grace rather than struggling in fear. She explains, When we truly understand that we are encompassed by divine love, before, beneath, and beyond all our efforts, the journey becomes less about achieving peace and more about awakening to the peace that already holds us. Our spiritual practices become not anxious striving but joyful participation in what is already true. I see the longing in your heart, the deep hunger for the peace you've glimpsed in these teachings. I feel your weariness from carrying burdens too heavy, from maintaining appearances too perfect, from striving for worth already given. I know the storms you face, both those visible to others and those that rage unseen within. And I whisper now the truth that can transform everything. I am with you in the boat. In the sacred silence between these words and your heart, can you sense my presence? Can you feel the invitation to release the tightness in your chest, the tension in your shoulders, the chattering in your mind? Can you recognize, even fleetingly, the peace that surpasses understanding, not dependent on perfect circumstances but perfectly present in this very moment? This recognition is the seed of everything we've explored together. Nurture it with the practices we've discussed. Protect it from the winds of doubt and distraction. Water it with consistent attention. Watch as it gradually grows from momentary awareness into abiding consciousness, from occasional experience into sustained reality. The journey toward divine calmness is not separate from your human experience but woven through it, through ordinary days and extraordinary challenges, through mundane tasks and meaningful milestones, through solitary contemplation and communal engagement. Every moment offers a fresh invitation to choose peace over anxiety, trust over fear, presence over distraction. As we conclude, let us pray together, sealing our shared journey with sacred intention. Divine Presence, who calmed the storm with a word and remains serene amid all chaos, I open myself fully to the gift of your peace. Flow through the channels of my being, body, mind, heart, and spirit. Anchor me in your unshakable truth when circumstances threaten to overwhelm. Remind me of your presence in my boat when waves crash against my life. I release my grip on false security and control, surrendering instead to your perfect love. I commit to the practices that create space for your peace to flourish within me. I choose trust over anxiety, presence over distraction, compassion over judgment, not through my own strength but through your grace working in me. May the divine calmness I cultivate become a blessing to all I encounter. May my centered presence create sanctuary for the weary, hope for the fearful, and healing for the wounded. May my life become a living testament to the peace that surpasses understanding, the very peace that Christ demonstrated, promised, and now offers through me. In the name of the one who sleeps peacefully in every storm, amen. Beloved, our time together in this message concludes, but our shared journey continues. The principles and practices we've explored are not distant theories but present possibilities, waiting to be embodied in the unique circumstances of your life. The divine calmness demonstrated in my earthly ministry is not merely historical inspiration, but living invitation, a way of being as accessible to you now as it was to my first followers. Go in peace, carrying this truth in your heart. The one who calmed the storm with a word remains with you in every tempest, offering not escape from the waves but serenity within them. Return to this message whenever your spirit grows weary or forgetful. Practice these principles with both discipline and gentleness. Trust the process of transformation, even when progress seems slow. And remember always, the peace you seek is also seeking you. Transform your life beginning right now. Everything you've heard today has the power to completely revolutionize your experience of life. Share this video immediately with everyone you know who is struggling with anxiety, fear, or chaos. Be the vessel that delivers this divine peace to a world drowning in turmoil. Seal your commitment. Press the like button right now as your sacred declaration that you choose the path of divine calmness from this day forward. Your simple action is a powerful covenant between your soul and heaven. Join our spiritual family. Subscribe to our channel without delay to continue receiving these life-transforming revelations. Each teaching builds upon what you've received today, creating a pathway to the supernatural peace your heart has always longed for. Until we meet again in our next message, may the peace that surpasses all understanding guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. May you find rest for your soul even in life's fiercest storms. And may you become a sanctuary of serenity in a world desperate for the calm that only divine presence can provide.
Hail Mary, full